p.m.
The Supreme Court delivers another blow to the UPA government in the 2G case, calls the license allocation irregular, cancels the 122 licenses that were given by ex-Telecom Minister A. Raja. There's a temporary breather for Home Minister Chidambaram, but no clean chit either. The trial court will now decide if the CBI should probe his role in the 2G scam. That decision must come within 2 weeks.
On the contrary, the Supreme Court clearly, and I will emphasize clearly, says that the Finance Ministry's advice was not followed by the then Minister for Telecommunications.
The political war of words intensifies. The BJP targets the Prime Minister, says Chidambaram must resign. Telecom Minister Kapil Sibal rejects that demand, says NDA's first come, first served policy has been criticized by the Supreme Court. Let me raise the next big question. Can the telecom sector, once seen as a symbol of new emerging India, survive the 2G mess? Before we come to our panel, let's listen in to J.S. Sarma, Chairman of the Telecom Regulatory Authority of India. He said that the Supreme Court's decision will impact less than 5% of the subscribers.
So can you tell us the impact of today's judgment, both on the consumer and on the industry? What does the judgment today really mean?
The number of subscribers covered by the licensees who have got this, whose licenses are cancelled, I don't think it's very significant. In terms of numbers, it is significant, but in terms of percentage, it is small. It's just about 5% or so. Now, even the existing customers can always port out to different service providers through the process of mobile number portability.
Okay, let's rejoin our panel. Paranjoy Gua Thakurta still with us and giving us his perspective. Mahesh Uppal, telecom analyst and expert, joins us. Siddharth Zarabi, economic policy editor of CNBC, who tracks the telecom sector closely. Suhail Seth of Counselage, managing partner, with us. And Gopal Jain, lawyer who represents telecom companies, with us. Let's come to you on that bigger question now. Let's just step back for a moment. What is the impact this is going to have, Mahesh, on this sector, which was once seen, or is still seen by many, as the great sunrise sector of the last decade?
I'm extremely positive about this judgment. I think the sector will actually heave a sigh of relief in many ways, primarily because one of the most important problems, which was relating to spectrum allocation, which is the key unresolved issue in telecom sector, has now been settled. It has been settled in spite of hesitation at the political level, in spite of dilly-dallying at the TRAI level. This problem has been resolved quite conclusively, and I do believe that this is going to be a very big deal for the sector. Now, there is a level of transparency that existed in other aspects of the sector, but not in spectrum allocation, which now willy-nilly will have to happen. And I think this is something that all serious investors would welcome.
Okay, you see that as a positive, but there will be investors today, Siddharth, who will look at this judgment and say, the Telenor type of situation, who will say, we don't want to come into India anymore. We don't know what's going on the ground. We don't know that whether the Supreme Court will strike down a legal contract. Do you believe there is that feeling also today there within business, as some are suggesting?
Absolutely right. In fact, 3 words to summarize this: impact on lender, impact on vendor, and impact on investor. That's the way to look at it. And beyond the legality and beyond the politics of it, there are clear losers who had nothing to do with whatever happened between a few set of people in the DOT on the 10th of January, including some people being pushed out and some people actually being put first in the line. I don't agree with the statement that Mahesh said, with all respect, about relief, because fundamental to this judgment are 2 other points which have not come up so far. The broad sweeping setting aside of first come, first served, that's a bad word for telecom, but that's something that's been done in most other sectors, including the textile sector, where the entire textile upgradation fund scheme is first come, first served. So I don't think there's relief, because if you look at the base numbers, if you use 2001 prices per megahertz of 2G to calculate, you're talking about 540 megahertz. I spoke to TRAI chairman. He said it's going to be more than 250 crores. Even at 250, we are talking about 1 lakh crore for the government. If it's going to come, as the judgment says, distribution of national assets between people, That payment is going to come from you and me through call tariffs. This is something that I've always maintained.
So you are saying for the customer, call tariffs will automatically rise now?
Absolutely, Rajeev. Last 6 months, they've gone up 30%. Let no one fool anyone here about the fact that you charge companies and they'll get money from God. That's not the real world.
You make an important point. Gopal Jain, do you also see that happening as someone who appears for various telecom companies? Do you believe that call tariffs will rise?
Rajeev, you have to see this in its correct perspective. Firstly, India has had the lowest mobile tariffs in the world, and the telecom revolution, the mobile revolution did bring in an affordable service. Now, there has been a general increase, and therefore there could be a possibility that the tariffs increase. But there's a very important point which this debate has missed, which is the role of the regulator. The government decision is based on what we call a recommendation of the regulator. The Supreme Court has torn it to shreds and said not only was it flawed, but it was contrary to the government policy, which is NTP 99. And this divergence between policy and regulation actually has a huge impact on uncertainty and brings in lack of clarity and lack of stability. And that's the root problem. So government should actually come up with a very clear policy which provides a healing touch and a way forward, which addresses the various constituencies, including consumers and subscribers, most importantly, foreign investors as well. And that will set the right trend and the right direction to go forward in implementing the Supreme Court. Yes, I think the consumer has benefited and will continue.
Siddharth Zarabi seems to suggest that the consumer will no longer benefit.
No, Rajeev, let me just finish.
Yes.
You see, the fact was most of these licensees had not rolled out a service. So therefore, as the TRI chairman also said, it's not going to have an impact on the consumer.
Okay.
We already have 8 or 10 service providers in every circle in India.
No,
so there is a large degree of competition
30%
already.
Gopal, the numbers don't. Gopal, the numbers don't count up. Sorry to interrupt you. The numbers don't count up. Even with very low rollouts by all these operators, you had the tariffs increasing by 30%. Stated fact. You suck out 122. This is not a defense of these 122. You suck out 122. You impose a burden of 50,000, 1 lakh crore on existing telcos who are spectrum starved, which Mr. Raja denied spectrum all these years. You end up making them pay. That is basic economics. That is why 3G has failed in India. Let's not fool us.
Okay. Paranjoy,
yes. It's like once again that huge elephant in the room, and the 6 not so wise men of Hindustan are choosing to touch a particular part of that elephant and decide on what it is. Let's look at a few facts. What the TRI chairman said. You have 900 million telephone subscribers in this country. Okay, 60 million have been affected, correct? That's how much? 5%, 6%, right? Some of them can move.
They can move, yes.
Right? Second point. You are saying, and I'm going by what Siddharth saying.
Yes.
In the last year, 20% of the tariffs went up. There was no cancellation of licenses, but 20% hike in tariffs. That's already happened. Third point, I think this whole thing and what Gopal has said about the role of the TRAI, here you have a regulator, here you have a government regulator, and this is what the Supreme Court has to say. Let me read out one sentence. To say the least,